created and what's coming from pictures. So this is another example of a drawing I did. Let's see. And here's another painting, just these experiments. I do a lot of bubbles and line work. I'm really interested in bright colors and a contrast between bright colors and dark lines. Here is an example of a piece in my series that I did. So this is a combination of a photograph of a forest and then a drawing of a forest that I did in the background. And I just wanted to meld them together and see really how I could create just a world that is surreal, but also might actually exist somewhere. And this was, let's see. I also want to try and play with a little bit of animation in my series. So this is a drawing that I did of a nest and just adding a subtle animation to kind of bring the drawing to life and add a little bit more to it. And yeah, so overall my goal with this series is to keep going with this idea of creating worlds and playing between real life and a surreal life that I create for myself. And I'm really excited to see where it takes me.
Thank you, Heidi. I think they're looking really wonderful. I've been really enjoying where they're coming. Comments? Anyone?
That animation was really fun. I like that idea.
Yeah.
Very subtle, but it's beautiful.
Yeah, and the last two had a lot of real depth to them, the way the colors were used.
I think I just want to say, I think it's interesting how you're experimenting with different mediums, different materials, and combining them in different ways. I also think that you could collaborate with a children's book author or a story writer. These kind of form I'll have a lot of potential for illustrations for a children's book or something, a fantasy graphic novel or something.
Excellent. Well, let us move forward. Kaylin, you want to talk about your work?
Sure. So, hi, my name's Kaylin. I'm a senior in the Digital Web and Multimedia Design department. I'm the oddball of this presentation because I'm not in the advanced desktop or advanced digital class, but I'm actually in an advanced studio. And I've made a series of my own. So I have made a series I called Transplant. And so when I started the series, I have always been really fascinated with nature. And then I discovered over quarantine that I've had a green thumb, where 3 plants transformed into 23 now that are just resting in my dorm. And I've always kind of incorporated artwork, like nature in my artwork. And also I came out as transgender this year, and I wanted to kind of combine the concepts of nature and growth, as well as like gender identity and personal growth into this project. So the main concepts of this project I wanted to highlight was that everyone has the chance to grow, no matter what roots an individual is born from. And like plants, we as humans need the proper support to grow to our full potential, which a lot of minority groups, people of color, the LGBT community, don't usually have. And also stemming from the idea that personal growth is not linear, and sometimes we may suffer through a drought, and growth can still happen if you do not have that support. So how do I aim to portray these concepts? So for this project, I planted 36 plants. I'm insane, I know, including bachelor buttons, morning glories, money plants, sunflowers, and cilantro. And so basically each week, over a 3-week period, I drew each plant on its own sheet of paper and grouped them in a grid per week. So there was 36 pages for each grid, totaling 144 sheets of paper. And so basically I started with a blank grid for when they were first planted to represent the growth, like the start of their growth. And each grid, each week is slightly bigger than the last, kind of representing how they're getting taller and growing over time. And also I feel like the most important part is that each plant is drawn in a different color than they present on the outside, representing how people can identify as a different gender or identify differently than they may present on the outside. So here's my process. So each week I would take the plant, I would sketch it out on its own individual piece of paper, and then I would go over it over like a soft core, like colored pencil. And so here's the growth over the weeks. And as you can see now, they're trying to invade the second floor Blake. So here's an example of one plant. Since the project is so big, it's really hard to take photos of the whole thing together. So here's an example of one plant, of one sunflower from the first week to the third. And then here's weeks 1 and 2 side by side, just kind of get the whole picture of what it'll look like. And it's still in progress, but it'll be in a art show coming up next week, April 19th through 30th, embraced to 7+1 power. So that will be there as well, so you can see it.
Wow, that's quite a project you're doing. I hope you have a garden to take all these plants to.
I'm thinking of either distributing them in the gallery for people to take home if they like, or I just have to, build a garden. I don't know, but we'll see.
Comments?
I just wanted to say that I love the conception of this project very much. I have a few trans friends, and having seen them blossom once they came out and became more of their true selves, it's just a very lovely metaphor. And I think that this project is so cool, and the way you're executing it is great. Thank you.
Thank you.
I also had a comment. I agree with Ali. I really like the concept. I also think that it's really interesting to tie this theme to create a kind of visual metaphor for this theme. I think that could be really useful for other people going through similar moments in their life. And I was also just thinking about this in the context of students doing digital work and how this is going to have a gallery life, a sort of in-person physical life, but it makes me think of time-lapse photography. And there's a way that maybe there's some way that it could have a digital afterlife too, where you scan it in and create some sort of time sequence that then can, be shared a little bit broader out there in the ether. So nice work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Flip
Thank
books.
you.
Flip books.
Yeah.
Yes.
With the flip book concept in Photoshop without any problem at all. Excellent. I'm very impressed with it. I'd love to talk with you more about that at another time. All right, Christian, I know you're there hiding. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. All right, hello everybody. I'm Christian Wilker Jr. I am a gymnast here at Springfield College. Gymnastics has been my whole life. I grew up in a gym. My parents own their own business. I plan to run that one day and work with them after I get out of school. So almost all my work I do in the VAPA department is about gymnastics. So the title of my series that I'm doing is called Gymnastics in Motion. In our class, we studied Edward Muybridge and how he would capture motion frame by frame. And that's something I wanted to try to, replicate myself. So I'm gonna share my screen. So this is like where I started, and you can see from the top left as it progresses. This is a skill in gymnastics. It's called a press on P bars. So I start with an L, and then eventually I work my way up to handstand. And then I was trying to do different things, and I had different versions. And this is another one where I tried to manipulate the background, where in the beginning there's lines where it's calmer, in the middle, top middle, where it's a very critical moment, and following to the right is when I'm almost there to the handstand, and then I get there. And then in the end, this is one of the ones that I like the most, with the darker background and the red glow. There's this one, and then I also did another one that I'm working on still. This is another skill that's done on high bar. It's a release move where you go over the bar and then you catch again. And then again, as you see from the top left, as you continue down, it's the progression of the skill. And the middle is more highlighted and focused, because at this point in the middle, the way the skill is being done, that's the most critical moment, whether you catch the bar or you fall on your face. So I wanted to highlight that. And I also did, a few different things where it was a little more highlighted, where it wasn't. Tried to use the lines to, help with the motion of the skill, where the physics are. And yeah, I was experimenting with different colors and different focuses. But yeah, so that's a quick little summary of what I was doing.
Excellent. Comments?
I love the way you put the motion together with it, Christian, and being a former physical educator, I can really appreciate the way that you selected the key moments and how they are critical to the success of the movement, right? That's another really cool part for people who appreciate gymnastics and appreciate movement.
Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, we're going to finish up. This is our last. Is Nadia is going to talk about her work. Nadia?
Hey y'all, my name is Nadia. I'm a junior in the digital web and multimedia design major and the president of Art for Activism. So for my series, I did the ABCs of Black history. So for the month of February, we did Thinga Day. And during Thinga Day, we had to do some type of art piece each day in the month of February and post it to the Thinga Day website. So my series, I created my series during that time. This is me. I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. I'm the president of Art for Activism. I don't think there's anything else really special. I create earrings. That's pretty cool. So the first letter I did is A for Muhammad Ali. And this series didn't really have a theme other than like the ABCs of Black history. I didn't have any type of artistic theme or anything I was gonna hold myself to. I was just gonna be loose with some of the art pieces. This piece, I don't think I did any other pieces similar to this art style. I got really inspired by my next piece I'm gonna show you. So this is Jean Michael Basquiat. And I liked the sketchy nature of his art, so I tried to capture that in my portrait of him. And after doing this portrait, I tried to incorporate more sketching brushes into my art pieces. So all of my art pieces are done through an app called Sketchbook. So none of them are like physical art pieces, they're all digital. Chadwick Boseman. So I tried to give like a 3D effect on this one. Ruby D. Ella Baker. Oh, 1 second. So Ella Baker is a civil rights and human rights activist, and Ruby D was an actress, poet, playwright, screenwriter, journalist, and civil rights activist. Aretha Franklin, civil rights activist, singer, actress, songwriter. Gordon Parks, he's a photographer who was very prominent and U.S. documentary photojournalism in the 1940s and issues of civil rights, poverty, and African American issues. Barclay L. Hendricks. He's a contemporary American painter who did a lot of portraits. Ida B. Wells. She's one of the founders of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People and civil rights activist. John Lewis, politician, statesman, and civil rights activist. Kamala Harris, politician, our current vice president. Harriet Lacks, a woman whose cancer cells were the source of the HeLa cell line, the first immortalized human cell line, and one of the most important cell lines in the medical research. The time that they took her cells, she was not notified and her family was not compensated. And her cells are still used today. Marcia P Johnson, gay liberation activist and self-identified drag queen. Outspoken advocate for gay rights. Nipsey Hussle, he's a rapper, activist, and entrepreneur. James Orange, a leading civil rights activist in the civil rights movement. He was assistant to Martin Luther King. Rosa Parks, activist in the civil rights movement. She's best known for not giving up her seat. Queen Latifah, she's a singer, songwriter, rapper, artist, producer. Jackie Robinson, a player who became the first African-American to play in the Major League Baseball. Sojourner Truth, abolitionist and women's rights activist. Truth was born into slavery, but escaped with her infant daughter. And after going to court, she recovered her son, and she became the first Black woman to win such a case against a white man. Harriet Tubman, abolitionist and political activist. And Usain Bolt. He is a world record holder in the 100 meters, 200 meters, and 4x100 meter relay. Viola Davis, an actress and producer. Kehinde Wiley. He is a artist. He's known for doing a piece, a portrait of Obama. Malcolm X, Muslim minister and human rights activist. And Sammy Young Jr. was a civil rights and voting rights activist who was murdered for trying to desegregate a whites-only restroom. And Zora Neale Hurston, author and filmmaker. She's known for making, one of her most popular novels is Their Eyes Were Watching God. So, yeah, that's it.
Yay.
Comments, questions, thoughts?
I love the way you mixed sort of well-known activists and lesser known activists. And you mentioned early that you didn't like have an artistic flow, artistic vision for it. But I think your vision came through the people, because you seem to do an awesome job of mixing the image of the individual with at least some of what I knew about some of the different folks that you identified. So I think that was really cool that you didn't allow your style to be a limiting factor in how you displayed these people.
But I'd also, I just love your color choices all the way through.
Yeah.
Fantastic color combinations, and sometimes a lot of different things happening, sometimes very, very minimal. I guess I'm echoing what Marianne was just saying. It's nice that you did use a variety of techniques and approaches.
Yeah.
Very stimulating.
Mhm.
Yeah, I particularly am very taken with the fact that it is sort of a broad range of different types of people, not just one. And also, though you think you didn't use the same style, by putting them all together with the alphabet letter and the image, it was a cohesive piece. A lot of times we think that we're doing something very different each time, but by it being done by our own hand, it is consistent. Excellent.
Yeah.
I just wanted to add something, Nadia. I can see this on kindergarten classroom walls around the country. I was also curious if you could share a little bit about your process in making those images.
So it's pretty simple. I would find an image of, well, I use Wikipedia a lot. So Wikipedia, strangely enough, has a list of African Americans. It's just a list of African Americans. That's the whole list. So they broke it up into sections like civil rights activists, musicians, football players, sports people. And I would go through that list to pick a person. After I picked the person, I would look for an image and go into Sketchbook, put the image to the side and go from there and just sketch. Usually I would try to do like background colors first and then sketch on top of the background colors.
It's great.
Yeah, it was very clean and very well done. I do hope you print these out because I'd love to see them printed out and shown in our gallery. Also, yeah, just saying. All right, that concludes our part of it. I know it's a little short, but if anybody has any questions or comment, this is your moment.
Well, I just like us to give another rousing round of applause to all of our artists because it really was a remarkable and very, very talented work. And we truly appreciate your willingness to share it with us. And what was really nice about this was not just looking at the art, but hearing your descriptions of it. I mean, that added a level that I may not have thought of if I was just, looking at it or seeing it displayed publicly. So I think that was a really neat insight into the minds of our artists. So I definitely appreciate you taking the time to share that with us today. So so thank you very much. I encourage you all, to continue to participate in Scholars in Action Day. We're off to a great start. So I'll continue to plug some other sessions that are out there and ask you to go support your other fellow student colleagues throughout all of this. We really, really appreciate it. Any other questions or anything for anybody? Well, great. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a wonderful day. Yay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job, Ruth. Thank you, Andrew.